Kava Culture, it's different. I don't know anything about kava, so I would, and I'm not sure how much of our audience does. So let's get into it and tell us what exactly is kava.
Yeah, you're not the only one. So we still have a lot of people walking in the doors who are like, what is this? What's this weird thing you guys are doing? So kava culture is originated from the traditional Fijian root kava, and it is a relaxing drink that kind of takes away the edges of sociability. And so it's kind of like a social lubricant when people come in, looks like an alcohol bar, behaves like an alcohol bar without people drinking alcohol.
Oh, okay. All right. Very cool. So
Yeah.
how did you start this concept? I understand you co-founded it with your sister, right?
Yeah, so my sister was the one who had gone to kava bars. I came from a finance background and had no idea what kava was really. So she used to work on private yachts, the kind of like below deck, the private yachts like
Yeah,
that. So
yeah, of course.
stressful. Yeah, so very stressful. And so she was looking for somewhere to go and relax after she'd get off work. And someone said, come to a kava bar. And so it was in Fort Lauderdale. There's actually quite a few over there. And she started going to the kava bar and she said to me, Jacqueline, I really want to open one. And I was like, you should do that. And she said, no, 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 with you. And I was like, yeah, I'm not getting in the restaurant business. That's risky. This is not a concept that's ever been done before. I don't think so. So she created a business plan and I said, okay, fine, I'll invest with you, but I'm not quitting my day job. It'll just be part-time and you can run it. It'll be your baby. We opened the first location and she did some training and then we opened the second one 2 months later. So it happened very fast. And she said, I can't do this. You need to quit your day job and come on, and start working here at the kava bar. And, I have a family. I said, I need to take a salary right away.
Right.
And that's not very prudent with a brand new concept. We just opened it 3 months ago, but the numbers worked. And so I was able to take a salary right away, quit my day job. And that was about 5 years ago now. We started and said we would do 5 locations and then we would franchise
Okay.
because we wanted to make sure we could be in different markets. And actually, Tampa was our last market that we tried. And then we decided to franchise after that. So
Nice.
that's,
So
yeah,
where did the first location open up?
Bonita Springs,
Okay. So Bonita Springs, Florida. And then the second one?
downtown Fort Myers, Florida.
Okay. And then you're thinking, okay, so this is like 2017, right?
Yeah, end of 2017, very end of it. So like October, we opened the first, then December was the second, and then January, I quit my day job.
Wow. Okay. What would you say to the audience, to people who want to do what you did?
I learned a lot. I appreciate the franchise world now. And when I've started looking for other ventures to get into, I actually visit franchise models because
Uh-huh.
it's a lot to start the concept and grow it. And, so I definitely value the business in a box, almost like a package,
Right.
being able to utilize a lot of those techniques. But I think having the 5 locations really taught us the third location was actually the hardest. And I tell our current franchisees that now when they have goals of opening 3, 4, 5. And I tell them number 3 was the hardest. It's, you can handle 1 and 2,
Right.
you could jump back and forth, but once you have 3, you need to step back and look at it from a different perspective. And that's probably the biggest piece of advice I would give is deciding of what you want to do. First off, we decided we didn't want to be in the business. We
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to run it and be behind the bar. We always wanted to work on the business to grow it. And now we have 8 corporate locations. Actually, a ninth one is reopening next week that was damaged in the hurricane. And then we have another couple more in development for corporate. And then we have around 20 signed franchises and 8 or so of them are open.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. You brought up a great point about opening the third location. The reason why it was so difficult is because now it outstripped you guys, right? There was more stores than there were of you and your sister. So it forced you to put the systems and processes in, because you can get a little sloppy when you have one location to, you can figure it out. You can do, you can kind of run the business on the back of a napkin, right? In the beginning on the one, but you get to 3, all bets are off.
Yeah. Someone
The,
else is going to have to oversee it. Yeah.
yeah. Where was the
Definitely.
third location?
Our third one was in Port Charlotte and Fort Myers Beach. They actually opened, we did 5 within the first 18 months. So we did quite a few at the beginning and then we kind of held off a little bit and focused on opening a brewery and then doing the franchises. Yeah. So Bonita Springs, then downtown, then Port Charlotte, Fort Myers Beach, and then Tampa.
So here's what I find so incredibly interesting is that obviously I live in Tampa, right? And I know the Florida market, but a lot of people that are watching or listening to this may not be very familiar with Florida, let alone Southwest Florida. I don't think of Kava and kind of cool and hip with Fort Myers and Bonita Springs kind of, the demographics. So if you prove something like this in Fort Myers and Bonita Springs and Port Charlotte, that's pretty telling, right?
Yeah, so that was funny because that's what everybody said about Bonita. A little sleepy Bonita. Who's going to come to a kava bar? We were open right away till 1 o'clock in the morning every single day of the week. And they said, what? Everything closes. That wasn't true. We were open and people had somewhere to go now, and it's non-alcohol. So it's kind of like coffee shop in the day, lounge at night. And it has such a vast amount of different types of people that come in. So in the daytime, a lot of working professionals, but then also students. And then they communicate with each other, which you don't see in a lot of environments where you cross those generational boundaries. So they get a lot of like feedback from, the 65, 70-year-old man sitting there talking about his, retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a young guy there who's in college and they're sharing experiences. So I think that's why it's really taken off. Now, I don't really attribute it to me. I attribute it to the community being interested in it and people walking in the door who want a franchise. And that's how we've had all of our franchisees, really. We haven't advertised. They've walked in the doors of a Kava Culture and said, I want this in my hometown. So, they went back to Ohio and they're like, this is where I want it. I want to be able to do this in my area.
Wow. Okay. So did you say 5 company-owned locations before you franchised?
I think we had 6. Yeah. So we had Naples opened then we opened Key West. Fort Myers Beach actually was destroyed last year in the hurricane, and we are opening it again now. It took over a year to get it rebuilt because it had 8 feet of water in it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's opening back up next week on the 29th of December, which is actually the day it opened 5 years ago. So it's kind of symbolic to get it pushed to open.
Yeah, of course. When did franchising come into, your mind or your sister's mind of this is how we want to expand?
Yeah. So initially we thought we were going to license. We always wanted to have people be able to spread this kind of community feel. And we didn't think we were going to venture fully into the franchise side. But then when we started talking to the professionals, they said, well, actually, what you're talking about is a franchise. So we were like, okay, for franchising. But then we did a lot of research on how we wanted to spread the message. And with these traditional herbal drinks, there's a very important factor in making sure that the products are safe to consume, that they don't have, pesticides in them or things that are bad from, some of these countries that don't have the same testing facilities as us. So we make sure everything's imported before it comes to us. It's tested stateside. And that was, one of the things that we offer to our franchisees. And that became a very important staple, is making sure the product is very consistent and safe. And so the model really built from that, and the marketing and the support that really we have for our corporate stores that then spreads into our franchisees and now expands that. So our growth plans are more on the franchise side now and not on the corporate side. I've started to really enjoy watching, new entrepreneurs open their location. And I used to get such a kick out of opening ours, and I don't get the same kick anymore as a franchisee opening. So that's the passion behind franchise growth now.
That's great. It is really a different game when you're running those company-owned locations or overseeing them versus franchising. And it's quite a challenge. I've talked to a number of, pros and founders on the show that, I really kind of dig in and ask them on what their feel is and their experience and what they've gone through. And it is quite a challenge because the larger you get, if you're still doing that dual strategy, it sometimes can, it kind of tear you apart. You kind of have to figure out, what are you? And there's nothing wrong with having company-owned locations, but to grow in a true parallel strategy, it can be really, really challenging because you can only, spread resources so much, right?
Yeah, I agree. And that's what we've saw over the last year. The hurricane hit us pretty bad in Southwest Florida. The Hurricane Ian took out 7 locations. They were closed between 10 days to over a year. And so that really, for us on a corporate side, realized that, there's so much opportunity outside of the area and into the Midwest and across the country that do we want to be up where it's cold? No, but can we bring a little bit of Florida to that area and someone who's living there can enjoy it? That's kind of how we started moving in that direction.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.